You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Hi, everybody. Gail Kraft here with the Empowering Process podcast. And with me today, I have a special guest, and this is Ellen Violette, right?
That's right.
Oh my gosh, all right, I got it. I'm so proud of myself.
You
So,
should be. Most people get it wrong.
I know, I've probably practiced it, but so Ellen is the owner and president at Create a Splash LLC. She's basically an ebook coach. She has such a vast experience. She's definitely in the space where she belongs and where you can benefit. Ellen is a leading author on ebooks, as well as a top business coach who helps her clients build successful careers by integrating ebooks with online business savvy. She's also a #1 best-selling author, award-winning author, the recipient of 2 ELIT awards. She regularly contributes to published magazines, and she's also a Grammy nominated songwriter. So she knows how to use words and get them together and how to make them meaningful so that people want to read them and learn from them. Ellen and I are going to talk a little bit today about breakthrough ideas. Welcome, Ellen.
It froze, so I don't know what you just said.
Oh, I said welcome. We're
Oh, well,
fine. We're not
thank-
frozen.
Okay, great. Great. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that that's actually an older bio because I did originally get known as the ebook coach. And when I first started, people saw ebooks and books as being very different. Like ebooks were seen as the poor cousin, so to speak. And I was fascinated by ebooks because it was 2004. And I thought digital was definitely where everything was going. And I was right. And so and nobody was talking about it, So when I was doing my first book, I was looking for an ebook coach and there were not any. But over time, what has happened is that now, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you go into Amazon, many of the books, they actually charge more for the Kindle than they do for the book. And the thinking has completely flipped because now they're going, oh, well, if they want it fast, they got to be willing to pay for it. And also millennials have been brought up on the digital, and statistics show that they actually like digital better, whereas boomers like me like print books better. So, but the thing is that now we just do a book and we do it in all the formats.
Love the audibles. I've gotten because I can put the listen as I'm walking.
Right.
Right. I don't listen as I drive. I found that when I'm driving, you get the repetition, that motion, and then you've got this beautiful voice telling you this amazing story and reading to you, and I fell asleep. Not really good when you're on the freeway.
Yeah, if it's putting you to sleep. Yeah.
Well, it's soothing, right?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Right. So so breakthrough ideas. So I'm going to share a little with me. I have so many breakthroughs. We were talking about, like, what breakthrough do we talk about? I have so many. I mean, it's really a pivotal point in your life where you decide to do something different, right? And so it doesn't mean it's creative and it's unique and it's something different. The ebook at the time that you started absolutely was. But it breakthrough means that it's something that it makes a shift in your life, right?
It was a huge shift. Yeah.
Right. It's right. Yeah. A huge shift. So for me, it was coaching. It was something that I never in a million. If you said, Gail, you're going to be an empowering coach and you're going to write books and you're going to have clients, I'd be like, I'm always going to work for corporate, maybe as a consultant, but I'm always going to work for corporate. And I took a coaching class because my certification as a consultant, as a process re-engineer person, all of my training lacked people skill training. And I felt that it would be good if I had some of those techniques under my belt that you get as a coach. So I took the training, the certification program to be a coach. And as you said a little bit earlier before we were on, it started to pull me.
Yeah.
And that's where the breakthrough comes in. It's like your life now takes a complete shift, right? So something that you've never expected to happen. So talk a little bit about how that happened for you with the ebook world back in the days. I remember buying the Sony reader for ebooks in like 2005 or something, right?
Yeah, Kindle didn't even exist yet.
Nope.
Yeah, and they were saying, "Oh, ebooks are dead."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, no, actually, I had always wanted to write a book, and I think it's partly because I grew up in a family where my parents wanted to write books. And one time, my mom said, "I'm going to write a book." And she went in her bedroom and she closed the door and she came out about a half hour later and she said, "I'm done." And we all looked at her and she says, "I don't have much to say," as it turns out. And so we were all kind of laughing. But, and my grandmother was an English teacher and my grandfather was the night editor of the LA Examiner. So I think partly it was in my genes. But what happened was that I was in the music business for many years, a couple of decades. And it's my first love. I mean, it's my passion. And I suddenly found myself where I couldn't be in it anymore. I didn't have the backing anymore. My parents had died. I'd lost my studio because it was in the house I grew up in, and I had to sell the house when my parents passed away. So I was forced out in that sense. And after that, we started buying, fixing, and selling houses because we made so much money on my mom's house and we saw that the market was starting to go up and we were just in the right place at the right time. But then the market got too hot. There was nothing to buy. And about that time, we were from Los Angeles. We'd moved down to San Diego. That's where we were buying, fixing, and selling houses. But then we moved back to LA and took a property management job. And basically the reason we took that was just to stop the bleed of the money we'd made from my mom's house till I figured out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And as I said, I'd always wanted to write books. And as we were living and working as property managers in Los Angeles, I got deathly ill. And, in retrospect, it was an emotional reaction to the feeling like everybody else was living their life and I wasn't, like I was stuck in this place where we were, when you do property management, you're living there and you're working there. And it turned out to be terrible for my marriage. My husband just kind of emotionally checked out and I was kind of freaking out and I got really sick. And Western medicine didn't know what to do with me because they didn't have a cure and they wanted to put me in the hospital and feed me intravenously because I'd lost 30 pounds in a month. Everything was toxic in my body and I couldn't keep food down basically. And so my husband said, I'm not letting you die. And he got online and he found this doctor and she described what I was going through to a T, and it's called environmental illness. And basically everything was toxic. I had gotten chemical overload and it was just too much and my system collapsed. So I wanted to work with her, but she wasn't seeing patients anymore. And she'd written a book and the book saved my life. So that was, first of all, pretty powerful. And as I said, I'd always wanted to write a book anyway. And I thought, okay, well, crap, you think, well, I'm going to write a book someday. And I was only 48. And all of a sudden it's like, how long do I have? Because that was like really close to the edge there for a while. And so it was like, okay, well, I'm going to write a book. And then I went through what everybody goes through who writes a book. It's like, well, what am I going to write about? I mean, at that point, I didn't have a business. We had a job and I was trying to figure out what my business was going to be. But we had been in buying, fixing, and selling houses. I'd gotten really good at moving. And so the movers had said, God, you're just so good at this. And so finally I said, okay, well, I'm going to write a book about moving because that's what I knew. But I also got on the internet at that point and was, starting to learn digital marketing. And I took a publicity class and I started writing copy for people because that's what I knew how to do. It's, website copy and brochures and things like that. And so what happened was that I quickly realized I didn't want to write copy for people because they wanted copy that they liked rather than copy that sold and copy that gave the benefits to their clients. Instead, they wanted it to be all about them. And that was when I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. But in the publicity class, my teacher said, well, why don't you become the moving doctor? I was like, hell no, that sounds god awful. Not doing that. And I got online though, and I found a New York Times bestselling author. And I said, am I crazy to think I can write a book? Because I didn't know anything, So he goes, I don't know, your writing's really good. You just have to start sending stuff out on spec. Well, that's what I had done for 20 years in songwriting. And I was like, no, don't want to do that again. It's awful. It's not fun. You get 99% rejections and the people don't really know you. And it's very competitive and it's just hard. So no, don't want to do that. So I started looking around and I'll never forget that day. I mean, I was like on the computer and all of a sudden I found ebooks. I was like, oh my God,
Self-publish, right?
I can right, exactly. I can self-publish. I don't need, there's nobody who can tell me, no, you can't do this, which is literally an A&R. We had a person say to it, A&R is artist and repertoire in the music business. And we literally had someone say, my job is to say no, and your job is to convince me why I should say yes. And then they would show you these songs that they thought you should write, like that were written by artists that they would never have accepted if you had written them. And then they would take, and then what happened with one of them was she was taking notes, on my stuff. And like several months later, all of a sudden, Richard Marx comes out with a song very similar to my song. So they literally stole my idea. But anyway, so I'm like, no. So this is great. I love this idea. I hated the idea of book proposals. I hated the idea of having to look for people to, be in control of my destiny. And so to me, this was it. The ebooks was it. And I was going to write one. And so I just started writing. But in the meantime, there was a course and it was kind of, it wasn't like now where there's like a million courses. There was like one course, that was the course at that point, if you wanted to do what I wanted to do, which was, sell books and learn internet marketing. So it was by Alex Mandosian. It was called Teleseminar Secrets. And this was before, this was before video, it was before blogs, it was before Kindle, it was before all that. So really all we had was teleseminars, landing pages, webinars, stuff like that, email, that was it. And so I took the course and I was very coachable. It was like, whatever he said to do, I just did it. And it worked. And I'm like, this is great. This is working. But here was the thing. The reason it was working is because one of the first things he said was, you don't make money from the book. You make money from teaching what's in the book. And so, well, actually, I should back up a little bit. So when I was writing the book, we started going to all these internet marketing events, and Alex was partnered at that time with Armin Morin, and Armin Morin had like the event, and it was called the Big Seminar. And so we went to the Big Seminar right when I was writing the book. And I go, I got to get a coach. I got to get an ebook coach. And there weren't any. I'm like, really? There are no ebook coaches? This is crazy. This is the future and nobody's doing this. So there was that going on. And then the other thing was Alex saying, coach. So I'm like, coach? I mean, it never occurred to me to be a coach. It's kind of like what you were saying, right? And so I go, well, I'll try it. I'll try coaching. So that's what I did. So I tried coaching and I couldn't find an ebook coach. And so I hired a regular coach he was a guerrilla marketing coach. And it was just like, it was not good because he didn't have a system. So I would just like make a mistake and then he'd tell me what to do instead. Like it wasn't, it wasn't easy and it was frustrating and it was expensive and it went on and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, coaching, ebooks, nobody's doing this. I think this is perfect for me. And so that's how I became a book coach.
So that's, I mean, part of taking action, I mean, your story and my story are things that you, like the day before, would have said, never.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's never going to happen. Right. And so it's when that moment hit, that light bulb goes on, you have an opportunity to act or not. Right. And I don't know about you, but for me, it just never occurred to me that I couldn't do this.
Me too.
Right.
Yeah, it never occurred to me that I couldn't do it. No, it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. The unfortunate thing was that in those days, way more than now, people would say, oh, well, I shouldn't say that. I still see this, but I see it mostly on Twitter. Oh, it's so easy. Oh, you're going to be on the beach 24/7. Well, if you have a business, how are you going to be on the beach 24/7? That's just not going to happen. So it was completely unrealistic, but I bought into it, as Perry Marshall calls it. I bought the Kool-Aid.
I bought much Kool-Aid in my life.
Yeah. And I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on things that didn't work.
Yeah, Kool-Aid's not cheap. Nuh-uh.
Right, exactly, on things I couldn't use. And there are people now teaching where so many times I go, God, I wish I'd had this 10 years ago, but I'm getting it now. But it's like, now I'm 69. I don't have the energy that I had when I was 59, but when I started my business at 51, I mean, I was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like most people who start a business. And little by little, you scale back because you have to, because you just can't keep going at that.
Well, it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
No matter what age you're at, you burn out. Just not sustainable. Yeah.
But the other thing is that then there are other breakthroughs along the way, right? It's like, that was just like the big major, direction of my life. Now this is my third, it's weird to say business because I was
iteration, third iteration.
Yeah. Third you say it. Anyway.
They heard it.
Yeah. So, but from there, like, I made a 6-figure income very quickly because I just did what Alex said to do. But then the recession hit, and then Kindle came in, and video, and all this other stuff. And where I'd been getting 200 people on a webinar, suddenly I was getting 20 people on a webinar. And then there were other things that people didn't tell me, like I was doing product launch after product launch because I have a signature program that's now called the 3-day bestseller program. But I was doing it in those days as a boot camp. And so I kept having to launch. And so each time I would go through it, it was like exhausting just to get to the point where you got to teach people, first of all. And second of all, it was like, then you would teach it. And then I would be sad every time it was over because I got really close to these people and then they were gone.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was normal because nobody told me that, So I thought, oh, this is heartbreaking. This is so hard, but I just didn't understand it. And so in the middle, it just got really hard because I got bitter. I got angry. I felt lied to. Nobody told me about the emotional roller coaster. Nobody told me about if you have trauma, it's going to come up and you got to heal it. All those things that I've gone through that in those days, I didn't have any support. Nobody told me anything, and so I struggled for a long time in the middle, and it's like, well, I made a 6-figure income. How come, I mean, there were years I made 70,000, 80,000, but then by 2000, and then I started getting really well known for doing book launches. I have 100% success rate taking people to number 1. So then that became a thing. And then I got so known for that no, I wasn't teaching people writing anymore. And I was missing that. So as a creative, you kind of have to understand. I mean, it's, people will say, well, just focus on one thing. Well, that's great in a way, but it's also terrible if it doesn't fit your personality. And so, you really need to understand who you are and then how to best navigate that. And it's pretty impossible to do that on your own.
I was just going to say, some of the things that I heard you say, especially the trauma coming up. I say constantly, don't navigate by yourself. Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Get yourself a coach. And yes, I'm a coach. And yes, I'm marketing myself. It doesn't have to be me. I'm telling you, get yourself a coach, right?
Exactly.
I have always had a coach. Now, I don't have a coach on retainer now, but I have a coach that I will send him a message and go, hey, you want to talk? And he's like, yes, I do. And he'll do the same for me. So we kind of support each other.
Right.
And I love him because he'll call me out. I can call him out. And at the end of our conversation, it's like, so based on what we talked about today and how you know me, what is it that I should be working on right now? We both say that, right? So from your perspective, what should I be working on right now? Right. Because there's always something that comes up.
Right. But I can remember when I was so angry because I'd spent so much money and now nothing was working. I was heavily in debt. And then I was like, well, I'm getting all this great results for my clients. I'll just coach myself. No.
No.
But that's what I thought at that
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
And then by 2018, I was in such a weird place because I was getting $15,000 for #1 bestseller launches, but I was miserable, number one. And number two, I wasn't getting enough of them. And number three, I wanted to go back and do the boot camp. And I tried to do it again, and I only got one person into the boot camp. And so I was just devastated because I hadn't done it for 3 years. I'm like, well, I thought, it would have cooled off. And so now there'd be interest again. And I ended up working with her one-on-one, but I was like, I was at rock bottom for me at that point. It was like, okay, am I going to quit or am I going to change? Because this isn't working. And so I reached out to a coach, kind of like what you were saying, who I've known pretty much since the beginning. And I was in it's kind of a lifetime membership, so I could go in and out anytime. But anyway, at that point, I barely had the money to scrape together for, one coaching call. But, and I had gone through illness, and my husband had gone through illness and bankruptcy and evictions, all kinds of crap, because I didn't understand. I didn't understand the eviction happened because I trusted a partner, and I was making plenty of money. We were living at the beach, we were paying $2,000 a month for rent. And all of a sudden, he had promised me this contract, and all of a sudden it didn't come through, and I didn't have a backup plan because I trusted him. So, things like that. So there's so many lessons that you get along the way. But anyway, so he told me to start a podcast, and he tells me, oh, it's easy, just start a podcast. So like, okay. So I started to start a podcast, doing it the way he told me to do it. And it just wasn't feeling right in my gut, And so finally, after spending like 9 months on my own, because I couldn't hire a podcasting coach because I didn't have the money. So I was like, no. And I scrapped it and I started over, and I did what was in my heart to do. And in the journey that I've had from there to now, one of the big lessons for me was that he was not the right coach for me. And yet I stayed with him for years,
And sometimes the coaches are good for a season.
Yeah.
Right. And when that season's over, I mean, I had a client, I had a client that she was great for the season, but then she held on when the season was over. And I tried to end it because I knew the season was over. And it had to be a bad ending. She wouldn't stop. I mean, she would show up at events that I was having and whatever. And I'm like, why are you here? You need someone other than me. Right. Because I had served her. Now there are other people that come and, they're in and out because they come in for different reasons. Right. And they're ready to grow. So sometimes you have the right coach and then they're not anymore. Right.
Right. Well, I don't think he was necessarily ever the right coach for me.
Right.
Because
sometimes that.
But I didn't know any better in the sense that, like I said, when I started, he was one of the first people I met. He was on stage, it made sense to my thinking brain. But the thing was that my people, my peeps are, creatives and all that. And his were more salespeople and that kind of thing. And he would say to me, look, Ellen, it's like, rather than focusing on books, it's like, why don't you go to offline meetings and teach them about email marketing and joint venturing and all the other things that you know how to do, which I do. And then ease them into the books. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. It just didn't sound fun to me, you know?
Right. And so you learned to trust, right, who you are and make choices based on exactly who you are. I mean, that's another breakthrough,
Yeah,
right?
but if you're a type A and you're stubborn, it can take you longer than it should too, which was my problem, right?
Right. So I'm relating to everything that you're saying
Yeah.
because I talk about the time that I had 5 or 6 coaches all at the same time for different purposes,
Mhm.
right?
Well, let's see, I have 3 right now.
Okay, see, and I got to the point where I was like, you tell me to go do ABC, I'm doing ABC, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of months and thousands of dollars, yes, in debt, 0 clients,
Mm.
0 clients.
Well,
And
in
I
all fairness, one of mine is for my body. Well, actually, the two of mine are for my body. One is Tim James, who I actually met when he came on my podcast, and I was so impressed I had to sign up in his membership. But his is Chemical Free Body, which is, of course, how you
right,
detox, right? Which is what almost killed me the first time. So yeah, so I'm big on that. And then the second one was also someone I've done a podcast with, and she's, let's see, well, the way that I got to, I don't know how I got to her exactly, but her thing was, are you sitting at your desk too much? Yeah. Do you have aches and pains because of that? Yeah.
yeah,
And so anyway, so I hired her, and I'm in her, like, it's kind of a yoga
yeah.
kind of
And so
thing.
yeah, one of mine was a personal trainer,
Yeah.
right. So it's still a coach, mind, body, and
Right. But
soul.
to me, it's all about accountability. I need those things for accountability. That's the main thing, accountability.
Yeah,
It's like, I am not going to do the yoga if I don't have someone on my butt telling,
right,
have you done it? Have you done, that kind of thing.
right.
The third coach is actually my business coach. I just signed up for a $20,000 program, which if you had told me I was going to do that 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, I would have told you were insane. So one of my other breakthroughs was that by hanging out with people who are making a lot more money than I am, and were also willing to spend a lot more money than I was spending. And I thought they were nuts until it suddenly occurred to me that some of the testimonials that people would give were stuff like, why wouldn't I spend $50,000 if by working with this coach, I'm making $500,000 a year?
Right.
Right. So when it becomes about rate of return on investment versus what is this costing me is one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is that total trust. It's like when you get to that point where you really trust yourself, when you know that you're going to do the work, or you know that you trust this person so much that if they can't help you, nobody can, then I was willing to go for it. But it's been a really interesting journey the last 2 years, because I signed up with this coach for a $1,200 program in 2020. And I learned enough that I got really good at closing and sales. And I even had a client say to me, oh my God, I love the way you just sold me into your program. I was like, yes, she did her job. Hallelujah. I learned something. My $1,200 definitely paid off. But I stayed in the conversation with her, and I went through several other events and, about another low price thing. But the more I hung out, the more I just knew, I just completely trust her. I just know that this is right for me. So, because you never want to spend that kind of money and not feel that way, for sure.
That's
And
just
I
it.
almost did that once too.
Yeah.
I almost got talked into one where
Oh,
I was.
I've done that. I've done that. I've so many stories are similar. This is why we resonate. This is why I have you on the program.
Yeah.
Because the point being is, no matter how good you are, you're gonna make a mistake. And sometimes those mistakes will cost you financially, emotionally, or physically, or all of the above.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And just find your way out of it. There are
Well,
people who can help.
What was really kind of the moment, that light bulb moment, when you talk about breakthroughs, was I was at one of her 3-day events just recently, and I'm sitting there and I hear my chatter, right? And I'm going, oh my God, I can't go through this another day. It's like, I can't keep having the same conversation with myself.
Mhm.
Like, I need somebody there to just, like what we were saying before, just tell me what to do. I'll do it, but I cannot keep going around in circles with this. And I just told my husband, I said, I said, I never want to be without a coach again. It's got to be the right coach. And I'm not in the space right now where I can just go and spend $1,200 on a program. That's not going to work for me anymore. Right. I'm at a much higher level now.
Right.
So it was in that moment. It's like, he said to me, he goes, you have to do it, don't you? And I go, yeah, I have to do it.
So, and he knows you well enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes he knows before I know.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
I'm so lucky because I'm way cheaper than he is actually. And so he's the one, because he's retired now, but he used to have a business, and he was in sales, and he would say, oh, we spent all this money and we made these beautiful offices, and people walked through the door and they just smelled money. And that was super important, and so he gets it, he understands, that you got to spend the money first. And that's another really big, leap of faith that people need to take, is when you understand that it's a risk, but it should be a calculated risk. And I highly suggest that people hang out and go to a lot of free events and, really see, if you resonate with the person and how you feel about it, and, and trust your intuition. Like, if it's going, nah, I don't think so, don't do it.
Then don't do it. Right.
Yeah, don't
Exactly.
do it.
Exactly. And if you commit to it and then partway down the line, it doesn't feel right, then you need to step out of it. I have a program that I'm in right now, mastermind of coaches.
Mhm.
And for the first year, because I've been in it for a while, it was exactly what I needed, right?
Mm.
About halfway through the second year, it started not resonating. So
Ah.
I'm about at the end of my second year, and I won't renew because the
Yeah,
season
it's
is
not
over.
right anymore.
Right.
Right. The season is over.
Right.
Yeah. And
Right.
sometimes that's part of the problem too, is people hang on too long, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I think they
Because
get
it's
comfortable with
comfortable.
that. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah. So your breakthrough ideas, they're not necessarily breakthrough, though sometimes they are, right?
Mhm.
They're not earth changing, but they are for you,
Mhm.
right? And we all have them.
Mhm.
Just how many people have those urges and don't take action on them? I'll give you a quick story if you don't mind. I'm going to share my son and daughter-in-law
Mhm.
lived past tense in Washington. They work for a big aerospace company there, and had a dream of moving to Indiana where her cousins are, because their children were the same age, and she wanted the children to get to know their cousins and grow up together,
Mhm.
right? And it's less expensive than Washington, right?
Right.
So, they, talked about it, they planned about it, but never did anything. So COVID came, and they were both working from home quite successfully. So it was time to come back in the office, and they both said, no, we want to work remotely.
Mhm.
His boss said no, and her boss was on the fence. So he transferred to another division, who said, I don't care where you are. Yeah, we'll take you, right? And she quit. And I'm telling you, within 3 weeks, because I was on the West Coast, I got a phone call. Guess what? I said, you got a new job and you're moving to Indiana, because they had been talking about it.
Right.
Right. Within 3 weeks, they sold the house, found a house, moved to Indiana, and that's where they live now.
Wow.
Right. Now, that was breakthrough.
Yeah.
Right. Breakthrough, because it's something that they dreamed about. And so many people, and when that moment came, that was ripe. And they said, if we don't do it now, we can't, because our daughter will be too old and have too many friendships that we would break.
Yeah, rooted.
We need to do it now, or we're not going to do it. Well, then let's do it. Right? That's what a breakthrough idea is. You have the idea.
That happened. Yeah, that happened to us last year. We had been, I told you we had gotten evicted, and actually we'd gotten, the second time we didn't get evicted, but we got told to leave because it wasn't up to code and they kicked everybody out. But anyway, so we ended up in a hotel type deal where it was great. Like we expected only stay there for 6 months. We ended up staying for like 8 years because, they paid for, we had maid service and we had, they paid all the utilities and all
Oh, like
that.
those extended stay type things.
Yeah. That's like kind of where we lived for a long time. But we never expected to do that. It just kind of happened. And then, like you said, we got comfortable, right?
Right.
Until we didn't. And what changed was COVID, but not in the way people think. What happened was they ended up moving us to another side of the hotel, and they put homeless people, first of all, on the other side, number one. And it changed. It was, unfortunately,
It changed the flavor.
It was scuzzy. I hate to say that, but it's true. Just it was low energy. And the other thing was like the one we had been in was south facing. We had sun, and all of a sudden this one, we didn't. But when COVID hit, the energy there just got weird. Like people would be screaming in the middle of the night, and the walkways were thin. And so you couldn't get 6 feet apart from people. And just the whole vibe was just weird. And so then what happened was they decided that they were going to redo the pool area. And they started with the jackhammering at the jacuzzi, which was like right under our window. And this went on for like weeks, right? And I said to my husband, I go, and the other thing was, it was getting to the point where if I wanted to grow my business, I couldn't stay there because my internet was getting ridiculously expensive. So it was like not working anymore as far as what it had done for us in the past. And so I said to him, we have to move. And we had actually talked about it right before COVID, but then COVID hit and we didn't know what the deal was with COVID. So we were afraid, but once we kind of knew what the deal was. So I go, we have to move. So I start getting online and I'm on Craigslist and I find this place in La Jolla. Right. Right. I mean, and La Jolla is, beautiful. It's the best.
I'll come visit you when I come to San Diego.
Right. And
I'll be there soon.
Yeah. And we're thinking, how can this be? Because like the rents are like $3,000 and this one was like $1,850. And we're like, there must be something wrong with it. Anyway, so we come and we look at the place, and my husband wanted to be on the bottom floor, and we get there and it's not on the bottom floor. It's not only one flight up, but it's like 1.5 flights up. And my husband's going, all these stairs, I can't do this, all these stairs. I go, just look at it. So he goes inside, and it's got high ceilings, and I've got this loft, and the whole deal. And he's going, oh my God. And this kitchen is great because we've got lots of plugs, which we didn't have in the other place. And so I said to him, and I didn't say a word. Like I knew the kitchen was small, but I knew it was like this or nothing. It wasn't like, well, we can just keep looking. And I knew at that price and this location, everything, I go, it's this or nothing. So I just kept my mouth shut, and it was done in 2 days, and we were in here.
What I love about La Jolla, and those folks who I've known who live there,
Mm-hmm.
it's very community.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbors know each other.
We don't here.
Oh.
It's very weird here in this complex, but
well, I'll have to. Well, I'm kidding. Not kidding. When I'm there, I'm going to look you up. Because well, I had a friend there one time. I went over for dinner, and she said, "Well, let's go get dinner." And in the backyards all met, and in that area where the backyards all met, they had a community garden.
Oh, that's how that was set up.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so we went and we picked our food.
Yeah.
It was fantastic, right?
Yeah, we rarely see anybody here, and it's beautiful, and they've got walking paths, and every time we go out, my husband just goes, oh, this is just heaven, it's just heaven. So, but it was so weird, and because we hadn't even like tried to get a place or anything for years because of the eviction. Like it was hard. We could always rent with somebody where it was like private, but you couldn't go to management companies or that kind of stuff. But anyway, this was a management company, so anyway, we could tell they liked us right away, and we were like shocked. We were like shocked. Like the minute we met them, they were like ready to give it to us, So part of the thing about going through so much hardship in your business is like, just don't get out of line. Like you just keep going, and eventually it kind of works itself out.
Right. Trust yourself. Just trust yourself. And if something feels right, then do it. Absolutely do it. I mean, honestly, if I had thought 2 years ago, I would never even dream about being a podcaster.
Mm.
No, right? And I had a friend of mine say, Gail, this is like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, yeah, because I like to talk.
Yeah, me too. I like to talk too.
Oh my God. And we could go on forever. So Ellen, thank you
Yes.
so much for your time. Now you have a couple of links and websites. You have your bestseller breakthrough. You have your book Open Doors. And so how can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about what you do and get your books?
Yeah, the best place is to go to the website, booksopendoors.com.
Okay.
booksopendoors.com. And if they want to have a bestseller breakthrough consultation, which is, if you're stuck at any point, if you just don't know where to start, if you don't know what to do, I'm happy to just talk to you, and see how I can help. And that is also, it's all on the website. Also, the Rockstar Authors Toolkit is there. You're welcome to grab that. You'll get some checklists for writing your book the fast and easy way that I've been teaching for 17 years and have taught hundreds of authors how to write books at the drop of a hat. And also how to do a bestseller title, how to do your Kindle. It's a Kindle planner. So you have to set up Kindle a certain way, just like you have a website landing page or a sales page, you have a page on Amazon that is your sales page. So you've got to have your ducks in a row there. And then the 21 simple strategies to jumpstart your book marketing online. And a lot of people think they don't need to think about the marketing until they've written the book. The minute you're going to write a book, you need the 21 simple strategies to jumpstart your book marketing online. So grab it at booksopendoors.com. All the books are there. The one I recommend people start if they want to write a book is Real Easy eBooks Workbook. And you just fill in the blanks.
I might just go check you out because I'm thinking ebooks myself. Yeah. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If something came up that you, after listening to this and you have some questions, let us know, make a comment, and maybe we'll get together and answer those questions, do another podcast, because that would be fun. If you know somebody who could benefit from this conversation, share it out to them. And as always, please, by all means, subscribe, like, share, comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to know that you love us. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Ellen.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.